Thank you everyone for coming. Primeramente, si hay alguien que habla español y si quiere escuchar la presentación en español, puede escoger el botón que dice interpretación y escoger español. I want to start by introducing Dr. LaNail Plummer and her team from Onyx Therapy. They've been working with Breakthrough Montessori for almost 3 years now, and they are amazing and wonderful, and I too am very excited to hear what they have to say today. So with that, I will give it to LaNail.
Absolutely. Good evening, good afternoon. Thank you for having me here, Allison. Whenever you need me, you know I'm here and ready to support the team. So before I get into my introductions, I also wanted to, or my own introduction, I wanted to introduce my team that I have with me. I have my Director of Education and Training, Ayana Malone. I have with us also Miriam, who is here. I think she's waving too. Miriam Lane, and I also have Desiree Brown. All three of them are educators. They have been in the school system for a number of years, I think at least 15 years for each of them, 20 plus years for a couple more. So definitely educators that have worked with kids for their entire careers. And I also am an educator. So let's get into it. So today we're going to talk about social emotional learning at home in response to COVID-19. So recognizing that your school, Breakthrough specifically, has created a wonderful curriculum and lesson experience for you and your children while they're at home, but also recognizing that there may be some different things that you can do to support the social emotional learning, especially for children that are at home with other siblings or who are there alone. So let's get into some of this good work. As an introduction again, my name is Dr. LaNail Plummer. I am a licensed therapist in Washington, D.C. and in Maryland. I'm also the CEO and owner of Onyx Therapy Group, which is a mental health company that has 3 main departments. One of those departments is direct clinical services, so the traditional therapy, and then the other department is the one that's led by soon to be Dr. Malone. Shout out to soon to be Dr. Malone. And that is our education and training department. So that's the department that Miriam and Desiree are in. And our third department is on talent sourcing. So whenever companies are looking for mental health folks to work with them, they come to us and we provide that. I'm also a professor, a faculty member at Johns Hopkins University, and I've been there for a number of years. So that allows me to do a lot of great research around children and adolescents and development through mental health. Close to last, I am a former lead counselor. I was at DC Bilingual Public Charter School for about 10 years, and that's where I started my professional career as a counselor. And so I've had a lot of experience in working with children in schools, as well as working and supporting teachers and parents. So I'm really excited about the opportunity to work with you all today. Lastly, I am a mother, so I am going through this just with the rest of y'all. We are going through it. My children are at schools in DC also, in charter schools, and so we are on day 2 of this distance learning, and it has been a thing, a real life thing. So I'm sure that we'll all be able to have the opportunity to talk about that. I'll be going through the slides, but I am absolutely an extrovert, if you cannot tell already. So I thrive off of interaction and communication. So be sure to use your chat if you want to engage with me that way. And and also feel free to unmute yourself if you have a question. Don't wait until the end. Let this be an opportunity for us to learn together and to create community as well. So let's first by checking in. Oh, and see, that's right. How are you feeling? How are you feeling? Tell me a little bit about what you're feeling. I can start off while you guys are thinking about your feelings. I am excited, but also tired and overwhelmed, navigating from my work computer over to checking in on the kids and make sure they're in the right Zoom room and making sure that they have eating lunch and, taking care of myself. So I'm feeling a bit tired, but also excited. But how are you feeling? Are you okay? Tell me. Okay.
I can start.
Yeah.
My name is Rachel Hawkins, and I know personally I'm feeling overwhelmed as well. I'm also a teacher, and I just started this week. So it's hard for me to find the balance, especially because I am at home.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, and I have my mother-in-law here, which we're very fortunate for to help and take care.
Yeah.
But there are times where I'm like, I hope my son is doing the right thing. I hope he's, but I physically cannot go because I have children in front of me that I need to teach.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to realize that he is fine. He is getting taken care of by grandma.
Yeah.
But, for me, I'm like, oh, I wish I was there listening and making sure he's all right. And Zoom is going well. So it's a bit overwhelming, the whole online learning for a teacher's perspective is hard, for a parent's perspective is hard, and for the children, it's hard for them too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're going to talk about some of that, Rachel, but I really appreciate you for telling me that. And I think many of us can relate to that, right? Like I'm not sure if you're seeing everybody else's faces, but I'm looking at the team and I'm seeing everybody nodding their head. We are all understanding that 100% of the time. So I appreciate the fact that you came out with me this evening to learn a little bit more about that social-emotional development at home, but understand that we are all in this together. So I hear you. I hear you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. And another person?
You have one in the chat room.
Okay.
From Danielle Parsons.
Okay, feeling particularly overwhelmed today after feeling pretty good last week and yesterday. I'm a business owner of a small consulting firm, trying to keep my employees employed, and then the 2 children at home, worrying about everyone at all the time. Oh yes, Danielle, totally relate to that too. Oh yes, and Ayana with the parental guilt. Oh, that is a thing, right? Parental guilt when working from home is so real. Absolutely. All right. I have to also make sure that I am slowing down. I get so excited and sometimes I talk really fast. Thank you for sharing, Danielle and Ayana as well. Okay, Ashley, overwhelmed, guilty, anxious, angry. Yes, 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 yes to all of that. Yes to all of that. Thank you for sharing, Ashley. Let's get into it a little bit deeper, understanding that we are all in this together. And again, feel free to talk to me while we're going through the presentation. No need to wait to the end. We can build community if we're engaging together. All right, so our objectives this afternoon, this evening, are to understand the importance of addressing social-emotional learning at home, especially during this pandemic. Learning strategies on how I can teach you all to teach social-emotional learning skills to your children. So when you see SEL during the presentation, it's referring to social-emotional learning. And then the last one is using guiding questions so that you all can discuss how to implement the social-emotional learning at home. So the format of this presentation this evening is that I will give you all a training, if you will, for the first 30 minutes or so. And then we're gonna break out into 3 small groups and we're gonna talk about this more and process it more. So those feelings that you have, they're going to be addressed, as well as how you can apply some of those feelings and some of those experiences while you're teaching your children. So we just went through a few feelings, and if we're feeling those ways, right, we can imagine that our children are having similar feelings as well. Maybe not parental guilt as much, right, but definitely feeling overwhelmed or trying to have balance or, a bit of confusion around what's going on or how to use the technology. They don't always have the words to articulate what they're feeling, but the feelings are still there, right? So the lack of expression doesn't mean that it's void, right? The feeling is still there. They just don't know how to express it. But we're going to get into that and teach that to them. So some key terms that we have here, and I'm not going to read all of the definitions, but I'll give put some space to do such. So we have attentive, which is paying close attention to something, empathy, emotional literacy, emotional regulation, social-emotional learning, and social coaching. In fact, I will go over some of these definitions because we did not translate them. So I do want to highlight that for those who are participating with us through the Spanish language. So attentive is paying attention to something, and it's in parenting, it's a skill to gauge and measure your child's response. So the key here is that it's a skill. It's something you learn. It's not anything that you automatically know to do. And so if you are not attentive all the time, it's okay right now. We're going to teach you how to pay attention to that and hone in on that skill, develop that skill. There's also empathy, which is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. So the key here is about understanding and sharing, right? Sharing those feelings. So not just understanding, but being able to be in it with someone. Emotional literacy is about the ability to express one's emotional state and communicate the feelings. So this is where you are articulating what you're feeling. So it's more than just kind of acting it out, we as people are used to kind of acting out our feelings and expecting people to know and understand them through our nonverbal communication. But here with emotional literacy, we're going to actually be teaching emotional expression words so that we can articulate our feelings. Emotional regulation is the process by which children influence their emotions when they have them and how they experience and express them. The regulation it can be automatic or controlled, conscious or unconscious, and it may have effects on one's points in the emotion producing process. So in emotional regulation, it's about knowing your feelings, understanding how those feelings became, and then controlling and regulating those, controlling them and measuring them out, if you will. Social-emotional learning is learning through a model for which the children and adults understand and manage their emotions, set goals, feel empathy, have positive relationships, and make decisions. So the key here is that the emotions are also connected to social interaction. So we have our emotions individually, but we understand that they have a role in how we interact and socialize with others. So when we understand our feelings and we manage our feelings, we could then determine how we want to set those positive relationships, how to have empathies with others, and also how to make decisions. Social coaching is a tool that helps children and adolescents understand the social challenges that they face and gain mastery. So that's really what we're going to be talking about today. You are going to be the social coach for your children. You are going to be the emotional coach for your children. One of the key ways of being a coach is also understanding and knowing yourself. So these key terms include parents, although it's addressed to children, it includes parents because the more you are aware of your emotions and the more you regulate your emotions, the more that you articulate your emotions, the better model you serve for your children. And so with the emotional regulation, it's important to understand that regulation does not mean suppression, it means regulation. So we all have emotions. It's okay to have the emotions. We should always express our emotions, but sometimes people think that regulation means suppression. And it's actually counterproductive to hide your emotions from your children because they need to see you as a role model. They need to see you as a social model, and that's how you engage as a social coach. So we're going to talk about also how you can express your feelings with your children so that they understand as well. If you have any questions, again, feel free to jump in at any point. So here we have a quote from the International Children for Leadership in Education. The pressures of this global pandemic and its impact on social-emotional learning are creating an additional complex experience compounded by school closures. Many children will be found in a psychological dilemma, confused by grief, anxiety, and confusion, while also searching for a sense of normalcy. This is coupled with pre-existing disparities and inequities while trying to establish ways to succeed in a different and to some, a strange way of learning. Tell me, what stands out for you when you see and hear that quote? What words stand out for you? What connections are you making? Yes.
Sorry, are we okay to just unmute and answer?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and sorry for the background noise. For me, the term dilemma and really being pulled between how messed up everything is and desiring a sense of normalcy is what really stands out to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's interesting about that, also, thank you, Danielle, what's interesting is that this is focused on the children, right? So our children are experiencing these dilemmas. Our children are experiencing these emotions. Our children are also searching for some normalcy and some structure. And there's a lot of reasons why, right? Part of that is related to attachment and how we grow and develop, but they are experiencing all of this. And for some, it's their very first time experiencing grief or experiencing anxiety or experiencing confusion, and they just want normalcy. They want normalcy too. And sometimes they do things to try to create normalcy, and we'll talk about how to address that as well. But thank you, Danielle. Let me hear from one more person, please. What stands out for you when you hear or read this quote? Okay, maybe not right now. You'll have an opportunity in the breakout groups to talk more about it as well. So I wanted to bring in some information from, a researcher named Chip Wood. He's the author of a book called Yardsticks. And Yardsticks is a book that really outlines for us in bullets, so it's a very easy read, but it outlines for us in bullets the different developmental stages that children have. It looks at these developmental stages from a social-emotional position, but also from a cognitive position, from a behavioral position, and from different perspectives. And so I really encourage you all to look up the book Yardsticks and possibly pick it up as you are watching your children grow over the next, well, while you're watching them grow. So in Yardsticks, Chip Wood outline some behaviors that are typical for 3 to 6-year-olds. And so we have them outlined here. We're often seeing children 3 to 4 years old with endless energy, led by curiosity, wanting to learn a new language, and not necessarily a second language, but the new language also being their primary language, because at this age, they're used to communicating non-verbally. And so as we're introducing words to them, that also serves as the new language. They're also pretty friendly and enjoy parallel play. Parallel play does not necessarily mean that they are engaging in play with you. It means that it's alongside you. So while you are doing something or playing with something, maybe you're playing a game here or you're working on your computer, they're often sitting near you or in eyesight of you and trying to play at that time also. They don't always want to engage with you, but they want to be near you. At this age, they also want to be big and do what grown-ups do. You may find them trying to cook if you guys are cooking a lot in the house, or they're trying to sweep and clean if you're cleaning a lot in the house. They think those are things that adults do, that big people do, so they want to do those things too. And subsequently, they learn by mimicking and doing and observing us. And so for the 3 to 4-year-olds, the modeling is extremely important, which is why we have to always be aware of where our feelings are and being able to express our feelings, as well as our interactions with others, because they're learning through watching us and then going out and mimicking it. I love the 3 to 4-year-olds. My godson is 3 years old, and he's doing all of these things right now. You know, when I'm at his house, he has endless energy. He's always asking questions. He's trying to engage in everything. And he absolutely wants to be big. I think he thinks he's big. He might think he's 30. I'm not sure. Then we have the 5 to 6-year-olds. They have an improved gross motor skill. So they're able to do a lot more things than the 5 to 6-year-olds. They're active, but it has more personal control. So they want to kind of be more in control of what they are doing and how they're doing it. But all of that is controlled by rules and routines. And so once they have a structure in place, including a social-emotional model, then they want to be able to engage and do the things that make sense for them. They can be very literal at times. And so anything that we say has to be very specific and understanding in a place for them to understand. They don't always get nuances or understand sarcasm. And they're still trying to pick up on tone and what that means. And so when we are modeling and working with our 5 to 6-year-olds, we need to be as specific as possible because they're learning. Remember, just a year or two before, they were learning through observation, and now they have more language and they want to learn through actual words and making sense of what words mean. So they move from just watching you to now wanting to engage in conversation with you or understanding what you are trying to say to them. They seek approval, but they're still testing, right? So they're still testing those boundaries. They're trying to see if you're going to be consistent. They're going to try to see if these rules and routines are fixed or if they're very flexible. I'll pause right there for a second and say that it's extremely important for your rules to be as fixed as possible at this particular stage and in the middle of the pandemic. Because we're going through so many different changes right now, if the rules are too flexible, then it causes for more confusion. At this age, they also want to be first. They want to do everything first. They want to be the first to answer a question, the first to have engagement in something. They want to be first. They ask a lot of questions, and their friends and friendships are extremely important. So as you're working with your children during the social-emotional lessons, make sure that you reinforce it by having little play dates, maybe via Zoom or one of the platforms, so that they can still engage with their friends. If you need some additional resources on how to do virtual play dates, definitely let us at Onyx know, because we're doing a lot of therapy by Zoom. And so we have a lot of games that you can use and activities that you can use as well. I get so caught up and excited about this information that I forget about the time. I just looked at my clock like, oh no, I'm not getting enough time for breakout sessions. So let me get into some of these guiding questions. These are actually the questions that you're going to process with your small group in just a few minutes. So I'll have them up here for a second, and then I'm going to move on. These are the questions that we use to develop the next slides that you're going to see, but again, you'll have an opportunity to talk about it in more detail. So when we're working with our children, we really want to promote positive relationships and the children's confidence. Part of the reason we do that is because, again, we came from people, right? We are people that came from people. So it's extremely important for us to be in contact and communication with other people. And at this age, between 3 and 6 years old, the things that children hear from us are the things that become their self-talk. So when they hear us saying things to them like you are strong, or you are confident, or you are able, you can do this, then that becomes the language that they use for themselves. And remember, we talk to ourselves far more than anyone else talks to us, or that we talk to someone else. And so the ways we talk to ourselves and the language that we use in talking to ourselves is extremely important. And again, that is developed at this age. By age 7 years old, the children already have a track for their self-talk. So here we're looking at attentive child-directed play. You may say, why play? Why play, LaNail? Why are we starting with play as opposed to skill? Well, remember, between 3 and 6 years old, children are learning largely by observation and modeling and mimicking those behaviors. So play is important because they don't always understand the words that we're using, but they understand how we're interacting with them. Then we reinforce it with words afterwards. And so lots of times we as parents, especially in fast-paced environments like DC, we're used to just talking and things just shifting really quickly, right? But with children, we have to slow it down and play with them so that they are learning at their level, right? We're meeting them where they are. So we're looking at attentive child-directed play. Remember, attentive meaning that we're paying attention to the things that they're doing, close attention. So here we're looking to make sure that the child is, that all the activities are child-directed, meaning that the child chooses the activity. Today, they may want to play a card game. Tomorrow, they may want to play with Legos. The next day, they may want to play with trucks or dolls or whatever the case may be. But giving them the opportunity to lead the play is a chance for them to feel like they have some power, they have some control. When you have child-directed play, you're less likely to have a power struggle later on during the day. Children want to have some control over something. Like I said before, they want to be the boss. They want to be first. They want to have some regulation for themselves. So when we control it by giving them the opportunity to direct the play, we kind of balance out that need for power for them. It's also important that we have pretend play. So pretend play being that imagination, right? Everything isn't fixed. A glass isn't just a glass full of water. It may also be a rocket ship, right? Or it may also be a boat or a vessel that's in the water. So understanding that kids may want to play with any and everything that's around them, and you should encourage them to do that because their pretend is how their imagination forms and it aligns with their creativity. With that being said, understanding that we also have to give respect to the fact that sometimes our kids want to be alone. Remember when I talked about that parallel play? Sometimes they want to play by themselves, but just in close proximity to us. And you can set up your home environment or your office environment however you want, but make sure that you also are giving some space for your children to be near you, but not necessarily playing with you. In order for the individual playtime to work, we have to have the playtime with them first. It's very difficult to start first with their individual time and then go into our time with them because they're going to start seeking our attention and they're going to start acting out. So always play with your children earlier in the day, especially if you're working from home. Try to wake them up, play with them, spend some time with them, and then go into the school day, giving them some more playtime when they have their breaks, and then doing some of that individual time and allowing them to sit near you. We're always supporting our children's independence and confidence. So again, when they are directing the play, we're showing them that they can be in charge, they can make good decisions. We support their good decisions. We believe in their good decisions, and it shows them that they are capable. We're also going to do some attentive emotion coaching. So remember, coaching is about how we talk to them. Think about your, if you play sports, how you saw a football coach kind of talking on the sidelines. You're off doing your thing, but you hear your coach. A good player always hears their coach's words. And if they don't hear them out loud, they start to play them in their head and they hear them that way. So in doing attentive emotional coaching, we want to encourage positive expression of emotions. So this doesn't say positive emotions, this says positive expression of emotions, because we also want to be able to talk about where some of those negative and difficult emotions are as well. not as much negative, but they're difficult, they're challenging, right? So we want to be able to encourage positive expression of emotion. One of the ways that we do that is that we set aside time quite frequently during the day to do emotional check-ins, right? So if they're having a break, say every hour, then in that hour, you want to check in their break time, you want to check in with them. Hey, how are you feeling? What are you thinking, etc. At Onyx, and for those of us that are parents at Onyx, we encourage having emotional pictures around the house. And so there may be smiley faces, sad faces, confused faces. And so even if they can't articulate the feeling, they can point to the picture that feels like how that's representative of how they feel. And then you reinforce it by using the language. Oh, you feel sad. Oh, you feel confused. And then you can explain to them, you can try to get why they may be feeling that way. It's also important to have emotional literacy books nearby. And if you need a list of those books or some examples of those books, let us at Onyx know, because we already have that as a resource. But books that you can use, I encourage the books to be reflective of diversity. So making sure the books have people and children that are have different abilities, they're different able, they look different, and things like that as well. When we're doing attentive emotion coaching, we're also understanding how to respond to negative emotions. And so there's a really great book that I would encourage you all to pick up called Incredible Years. And in that book, it talks about the importance of playing with our children, the importance of praising our children, but also how to set limits for our children. When our children respond negatively, or when our children are in a negative space around their emotions, or they're having really complicated feelings, it's important that we regulate. That's why we started with the emotions first. We regulate, we acknowledge how we feel to ourselves and potentially to our children, and then we engage with them. If we engage with our children with the same exact emotion that they're having, and it's a complicated emotion, it's actually gonna cause some sort of emotional explosion, right? So because we are the adults, we need to first regulate our feelings, not suppress, but regulate, and then engage with the children with their feelings. So having them talk about their feelings or point to the pictures or using a book as a reference point. We're also going to enhance our children's empathy skills, because when we express our emotions through our own regulation, we're teaching them how we feel and how they subsequently how empathy works. So how they can relate to us based off of feelings as well. Again, empathy is one of the things that's taught through modeling. So don't be afraid to talk to your children about your feelings. They will not have a good opportunity to learn empathy unless they practice it at home. You have to give them that opportunity. So attentive creative parent play, this is where we're understanding how to respond to negative emotions. Like I mentioned a second ago, we have to regulate ourselves. That may mean that we take a break for a second, we walk away. We go and take a drink of water. We sit by a window and we get fresh air. And then we go forward and we respond to our children. When responding to our children, we want to ask them about their feeling. And we want to ask them how they came up with that feeling. And we want to help them create solutions. That's part of emotional intelligence. We're going to also use pretend play to learn how to include others, right? And so in that situation, when they are doing their play, we're going to include different dynamics. We're going to include different dynamics and different scenarios. So again, they're leading the play because they chose the activity, but because we're engaging in the play with them, we may have one of the Barbies hit the other Barbie, and then see how your child responds, and then talk them through that. Or one Barbie walks away from another Barbie, or the trucks collide with each other. And of course, it looks like fun in those moments for them, but we're going to talk to them about it. We're going to talk to them how this truck may feel versus how this truck may feel, and how to make it better for everybody. We're also going to know how to use social actions for those emotions. So we're linking social actions to emotions, like I just mentioned. So how we engage with people, how we engage with ourselves, and how that connects to feelings. And I just gave a perfect example for that. But again, I'm going to give you guys some time to process that in your groups. I know I'm talking really fast. I need to slow down and a lot, but I get so excited about this information, and I want to be able to give you as much as I can, and knowing that you're going to also have opportunities to follow up with us after this. Oh, give me 1 second. It looks like I froze over here. Here we go. When we're promoting our children's emotional skills, we're teaching them self-regulation skills. So just a second ago, Ayana put in the chat to take an adult timeout, and that's when I was referring to walking away and to taking a sip of water. When we're teaching our children self-regulation skills, timeout is one that's often used because it shows them that taking a break doesn't have to be a consequence. It can actually be something that's positive and preventative. The difference here, however, is that we have to explain it to our children. We can't just say, go and sit down and time out and think that everything is resolved from there. No, we have to tell them to sit down in the timeout, give them an opportunity to calm down their bodies. So you may have them sit in a position that's calming. I prefer with your hands sitting right on top of your thighs and your feet flat on the ground. That actually causes you to have to relax your shoulders also. When you're teaching them self-regulation and say timeout, you're also gonna have them practice their breathing, right? So taking their deep breaths. In our timeout areas, my kids are big now, they're 13 and 16, but I used to have an image in their timeout their timeout area of something that was calm, like maybe a picture of the beach or the woods or a toy that they like to play with. And that showed them that they can also use a visualization as a way of regulating themselves and calming down. The key word here is skills, because it is something that they learn, and they learn it because you are articulating it to them. You are modeling it because they're watching by they're paying attention and learning by observation, but you are also saying it because they're taking things quite literal as well. We're helping our children stay regulated by using words. That's what I mean a second ago, by saying exactly what we mean. Sometimes that means, again, that we have to take a timeout so that we can actually articulate to them what we want to be saying and what we want them to be doing. Remember, they don't understand sarcasm. They're not understanding the tone all the time. Sometimes they need the actual words so that it is reinforced and cemented for them. The key in this next box is around that modeling piece, knowing ourselves and seeing how we're interacting with other people in the home. If you're in the home with other people, you have to be consistent in how you interact with them, because the children are watching. They're not just watching when you're doing your social-emotional time or your pretend play or your parallel play activities. They're also paying attention to you when you're in the kitchen and you're preparing dinner, or you're going on a walk in your neighborhood and you see someone else. So in those moments, it is very appropriate to talk to the children about what's going on as well, right? Here, the modeling piece is extremely important in that if there are different levels of conflict in our home, and they're going to be conflicts in our home, especially during COVID and the pandemic. That's an entire different training about what is happening to our brains and our bodies and our amygdala and things like that. But when conflicts arise, it's important to address those also with the children in developmentally appropriate terms. Again, oftentimes as parents, we try to hide and shelter and suppress our feelings because we think that's what's always best for the children, but it doesn't give them an opportunity to learn, especially after a conflict has been had and a solution has been made. Children get confused when they see people arguing, and then the next thing they see that they're kissing or hugging, and they don't see what's happening in the middle, right? Especially because they're learning by observation. So we have to show them what's in the middle also. And we have to talk to them about that even at 3 to 6 years old. There's language that can be used in that regard as well. And I'm again you'll have an opportunity to talk about that in your breakout group. Here, we're also going to be helping our children practice calming down skills. So the key with practice is that just like with a sport, you practice before the big event, right? You don't just practice in the middle of a situation. So this is how you use play to practice. You create something. It's a calm environment. Everybody, things are going well. And then you create a experience, and then you talk to them about how to calm down in that moment. If we only try to teach calming down strategies in the midst of a heightened moment, it doesn't become cemented in the child's experience. The reason for that is because our limbic system in the back of our brain is heavily activated when our emotions are activated, which causes our amygdala, which is in the middle part of our brain, to be activated, which means that the frontal part of our brain, which is where we do a lot of our executive functioning and our thoughts, is closed. So we have to practice calm down strategies while the child is calm, because that's when the frontal part of their brain is most active. So practice it through the play and creating experiences and scenarios for them to practice these particular skills and strategies. As such, you may have Barbie go take a little time out because she got upset about something, right? But the child themselves are still calm, but they're trying to, but you're teaching them the strategies and skills for calming down. Here, when we're looking at promoting children's cooperative friendships, again, going back to modeling. So all this is very circular, right? What you do is what your children will do. How you interact with people is how your children will interact with people. How you interact with yourself is how your child is going to interact with themselves. How you interact with your child is how your child is going to interact with you. So it's all connected. So that's why we started off with the definitions, and we started off asking you about your feelings and your thoughts, because those things are what is going to happen with your children as well. We're going to be using one-on-one modeling and prompting, encouraging social skills. So this is where you're talking directly to your child one-on-one, and again, linking those social actions to emotions. Also using that social coaching that we talked about to promote sibling and peer cooperation. So the children can always practice social development with their siblings, with their relatives, with their cousins, with people that they're already interacting with. You don't necessarily have to create a new experience or opportunity for them. Instead, you can use their normal social experiences to coach them, which means you also have to understand your own emotions, because it can be very frustrating when your two children are fighting with each other, but that's actually a learning opportunity for them. And so making sure that you regulate your feelings around it so that you can engage with them objectively. I'm getting close to, I'm over time already. And so I want to go ahead and go into the breakout groups. You guys are going to have a few three different breakout groups. We have Ayana, who's going to be leading one breakout group, Miriam, who's going to be leading another breakout group, and Desiree leading the next one. So in that group, ask the questions you want to ask, connect to the information how you want to connect to it, and understand that you can get in contact with us afterwards. Again, I went into a lot of information here, but I want to give a few minutes for processing as well. So Allison, if we could get into those breakout groups, I'd appreciate it.
Just open the room, so everyone should see a pop-up to come and join.